Hello and welcome to the Eddie Conversation Podcast, episode number 96. My name is Eddie Vigil and I am your host. Joining me today is George Triplett. George?
I'll be right out.
Okay. There he is.
Ooh, dark in there.
Okay, yeah, thanks for... What were you doing in there?
I was recording a commercial.
Commercial audio.
Commercial audio in my little sound booth that I made all by myself.
There we go. Okay, so George, it's great to get you on the show finally.
Yeah, this is cool.
I want to, before we dive into hearing your stories, I do want to lay out for the people at home who you are to me. George is a longtime friend. I'd say we've been friends for over 10 years now.
Yeah.
You have been there for me through a lot of moments and a lot of moments very recently as well. So we've been through a lot. We met in Reno, and you've been you've been there for me in so many ways, and I have to credit you for a lot of where I am today, and it means a lot to have you on the show, and I do want to say up front that I love you.
Awesome, thank you.
And I'm excited to talk about and highlight everything that you are.
Right on. Cool.
So, George is an actor.
I am.
How would you like to I guess maybe I have questions lined up for you.
All right.
But let's start with the acting. And I'll actually jump right in because I got some questions from your family.
Oh, good.
Lined up.
This ought to be good.
We're going to start for a question. You have 2 sons.
Yes.
I'm going to start with your youngest.
Okay.
His name is Wyatt.
Why? Okay, I didn't know if we were saying names, but yeah.
Or we don't
Cash
have to.
And Wyatt. Cash and Wyatt and Caitlin.
Yes.
Yes.
So
3 kids.
Wyatt has a question for you.
Okay.
We'll start with the big question up front. Why did you start acting?
That's a good question. I've asked myself that a lot throughout my... See, I started actually acting in 2000, so 25 years ago. The reason I did that, my excuse was that it was part of the curriculum at the community college I was going to. And so I took the class and just kind of got thrown into it. That's what I usually tell people. The truth is, I've always wanted to do it, but I never wanted to tell anybody that I wanted to be an actor. I was a little embarrassed by that. So I didn't do theater in high school. I probably should have. That might have been a better route for me. But when I was a kid, like the first movie I saw in a theater was Star Wars, the first one. And from then on, I was hooked. I was like, anybody wants to play Star Wars? I'm Luke Skywalker. Let's do this, And I had the character down. I just loved just trying to figure out what Luke would do in whatever situation we came up with. That transferred over to Dukes of Hazzard. I have 2 brothers, one older, one younger. So we did a lot of playing outside where we did role playing kind of things. So I don't know what it is about that I loved so much, but I always craved that after that opportunity. And then I was taking an art class at the community college, and I saw some kids in the hallway, and it was on the back side of the theater, so I knew that they were doing a play, and I was like, that looks like so much fun, but I could never get on stage. That's not me. And so I took my first class, and my teacher, Carolyn Ray, asked me to audition for the play that we were doing. It was a musical. And I told her, no, I don't get on stage. And the class I was taking, we had to be on stage for the final. And I was really freaking out about that. So I didn't even want to get on stage in front of a bunch of people and sing and dance. And this is crazy. Why would I do that? So I tried to quit. She wouldn't let me. So then after I did that play and I finally got through that final performance, then people would come up to me after the plays and ask me to be in another show. And it got to where I was doing like one show after another, just constantly. And I finally had to just like back off and say, I need to work in my real life instead of just always on stage. So I backed out a little bit. Probably should have stuck with it a little bit more. I learned something every time. I learned something about me. I learned something more about people and in general, and what makes people tick, what makes individuals do certain things that I wouldn't have seen it that way, but because I can explore what they're doing in the play and find the reasons for it. It was just so much fun. The more research I did, the more I got into it, the more I loved it. And performances were tough, but the research part and the learning lines and all that was like, that's where I was loved acting.
That's great. I'm thinking about the initial question and the why of it all.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm hearing is it's fun and you get to play and you get to explore different sides of yourself. So when we can dive a little bit, because I want to hear more of, we'll start from like maybe your early life and kind of work back up to you making the decision to call yourself an actor, maybe. Because I'm going to guess, being that you had a level between I want to act, but I'm not going to join theater, but I want to, but I'm not. And then you go to having this theater class where the instructor is not letting you quit the class, and you're kind of forced to be doing you're forced to go on stage. You're encouraged to kind of do a musical, which sounds terrifying as your what's the word, like your introduction to the world as an actor is through a musical.
Yeah, like trial by fire. Just
Yeah.
jump out there and do it.
So was there anything else going on in there between you trying to quit, you doing stage plays, and then was there a point in there in which you were actually telling people this was something you were working to do, or was it just something you were doing and you hadn't committed to it yet?
Yeah, I hadn't committed to it at all. I didn't tell anybody I was in the play. I didn't want anybody to come see it. I wasn't like advertising and trying to help bring people in because I was just like mortified, and I didn't know how the first show was going to go. And even just on stage in front of my classmates doing a scene, I was like sweating, and like my voice was shaky, and I couldn't seem to get the nerve to and I kept forgetting lines. And it was through the encouragement of the teacher that I just kept like moving forward with it. But yeah, there was no I didn't really, I had a hard time admitting to myself that I wanted to be an actor. I would it sounds kind of silly, but I remember being in the bathroom, looking in the mirror and trying to say, I want to be an actor. And I couldn't get the words out. I had to turn the lights off, say it a couple times, then turn the lights on, then say it. And then from then on, it was a lot easier for me to tell people that I wanted to be an actor, because growing up, I just thought that was the silliest thing you could ever do. It's not really a career. And I didn't understand what it took to be an actor. I had no clue how to even get started, but I figured that getting myself to admit it to myself was probably the first step.
That sounds about right to me. Yeah, because especially if you're receiving those messages, like you said, that's where you thought about it before. I mean, that's what kind of held you back, is my interpretation is you're like, this isn't something I could actually do, so I shouldn't want to do it, kind of thing. Is that essentially?
Yes. Yep. I did actually, before all this, I was looking for a job. I was working at a transmission shop. I worked there from 2000 or from 96 to 2006 for 10 years. And there was a point where I wanted to go back to school I was going to go for an engineering degree at UNR. And I knew that I wanted to do something else besides work on cars. So I was trying to find another job where I could go to school during the day and work at night, or, work earlier in the morning and go to school at night. Just like the 8 to 5 thing was what jobs I'd be interested in before I could meet with a counselor, and then they could try to figure out which way to go with it. And actor was on the list. So I thought, well, it's on the list. It must be a job. So I picked that. I put that was one of my choices. And so I go talk to the counselor, and he goes, actor, wouldn't we all want to do that? And I go, well, yeah, I just thought, maybe if it's an option. He goes, if you live in California, maybe, but 99% of the people that try that fail. So we're not even going to look at that one. It's like, all right. And so this was like after I started theater class and did that first show, but it was before I really got into it.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's a good starting point. Is the story of you even thinking about the idea of I'm gonna pursue this thing. Now I do want to tie it. I have more questions from the kids. I have more questions from others, but I have questions too.
All right.
Cool. I do want to tie this into our relationship, because it is the ending conversation.
Right.
I met you. Okay, let me see. I went to school for engineering. Okay, I got my degree in Reno, and it was mining engineering. And you've heard the story before, but I'll recap for people that when I graduated, the mining industry had essentially, collapsed. Or in a way where most companies were shaving down their teams and not actually hiring. So
right.
I had decided that I would pursue my own creative dream, and I wanted to be an actor too. Not knowing the same thing. I don't like. What does that even mean?
Right.
What does that look like? And what is the Reno version? Because we met in Reno. What does that look like in Reno? And I had taken an acting 101 course my last semester of college for fun. That was all. I really enjoyed that. My instructor there had encouraged me to, had sent me to a play. They're like, this play is kind of like, it's an original play. They're looking for cast members. You should audition, give it a shot. And
do you remember who the teacher was?
Sandra Niece? Sandra Niece?
Yeah.
Do you know her by chance?
I know the niece name.
I think that's her name.
Was it? It'll come to me.
Okay. So it's like similar to you. It was a musical.
Right.
And I'm like, well, if I'm gonna do it, you just gotta do it. And I did the musical. I was an ensemble member, so I didn't have any solo singing or anything, thankfully. And it was really rough. And from there, Deborah Lynn Hall was in the cast. And at the end of the show, she was letting us know that, hey, I'm starting up an acting class. And then I was like, well, this is an obvious next step. I've done a play, but I don't really have any formal training of any kind, so I'm going to take her class or her workshop or whatever it's called. And then that's where you were in the class too, right? Is that
yes,
where we met?
That's where we met, yes.
Okay.
Was it Hannah Niece? Maybe?
I don't think so.
Okay, I know she was teaching. I went to high school with her. But I don't know if she was teaching at UNR. Anyway, that was the niece I was thinking.
They might be related. Okay, so we met in an acting class. Yes. A scene study, specifically, is what it was called. Yep. And I remember... what I want to do is I want to tie it back into where this was for you and your like how you ended up there, because I don't know that story. But for me, like we got partnered up in some scenes. I remember because you write too. We can talk into the all the arts that you do. I know that you're involved in a lot of different arts. You write, you paint,
Hmm.
um, you do. We can talk about all the stuff. But for this, you had written a feature, I think, that had a scene about us meeting.
Yes.
And the one interaction was me calling you out for like, you can't play that role, you're too old.
Right.
And I'm like, that's what he remembers about our early days? Okay. Oh.
So I wrote this feature mainly because I wanted to document my acting journey, and I didn't want to just write it in a book. I wanted to make it like a comedic um, screenplay. So the intention was to never shoot it, but I just wanted to track it. So as I went, just hit the highlights and the funny stuff and the cool things that stick out. That was like keep getting knocked down and I get back up and I just go for it. And so that was the intent of that screenplay. And I haven't worked on it in like 4 years, so I need to get back to that because there's a lot that's happened since then. But yeah, that the one scene that I decided to use from that class was we were trying to pick out scenes for class, and I came across the Fight Club scene because I loved Fight Club. That was like my movie, and then I said, let's do the Fight Club thing, and you looked at it, you looked at me, and goes, no, you're too old to play either one of these characters. I was like, okay, I guess we'll do something else. Then I think we did American Psycho. Was that?
That sounds
I think
familiar.
that's the scene we ended up doing. But
Sounds familiar.
I was
I'm
like,
sorry.
oh, I didn't know I was.
I shouldn't have said that.
No, that was an eye opener because I would just assume that we could do whatever scene we wanted to do, which is still kind of true. But I've had an issue with getting age appropriate material to work on, because like I could work on a Fight Club scene now, and I could work on the scene. I could learn a lot, and I could execute the scene, but the character was not written for somebody my age, so that's not age appropriate. If it was something that we were going to shoot, it would probably not benefit me to do that. So that was like the beginning of my thinking of I need to look at age appropriate material. So it was a good thing you did that.
I don't know. I still me now would be like, why not? Let's do the scene.
Right.
I mean, there's no reason. Well, I don't know what the scene was. I don't even remember it at all. But there is a version of the movie that could, like, we could just take the scene and extrapolate kind of variations of the movie based off of what differences come out based
Right.
off of who you are, because every actor is going to bring something different to a role. And what if the role was written for you, at you right now, like that's me right now. But I'm glad
Yeah,
that
right.
you found a way to spin that positively. Because I'm like, man. But how? I guess maybe as a smaller segue to the next question. But where were you prior to that class? Like like what's the gap between the stage work and getting to scene study?
Okay, so after I decided that I wanted to be an actor, and I was actually able to say it to myself, I decided to figure out what the market in Reno needed, because it's not like I could just move to LA and sleep on somebody's couch, which that might have been a better option. I don't know. I could have moved here and not had a place to stay and been back in Reno in 6 months and just wasted that time. So you never know what could have happened, what might not have happened. So anyway, I decided to try to make it because my daughter was still in school, and I wanted to wait till at least she was out of high school before I moved away from Reno, because I didn't want to get too far away from her and then never get to see her. So so that was my constraints. So I decided to figure out what was the best way to work on my craft without moving to LA. So I found in Reno, it's such a small market that there isn't Like here, there's you have casting directors that producers and directors come to help them cast a show. They give them suggestions. They'll audition people, and then they'll give them the producers and directors suggestions for who they think should play the parts, and then they all collaborate to find somebody for the parts. So there's an agent who works with the casting directors to send the casting directors actors, and then there's a managers that oversee the actor's complete career, and they help the actor get agents. They work with casting directors, and so they each have individual jobs when you're here in Los Angeles. But in Reno, it's such a small market that they usually combine the functions. So there was like a casting director could be an agent at the same time. And there wasn't really the manager position because there wasn't anybody really big enough to have to overlook the big picture. So there was mainly casting directors and agents, and they usually played, both roles. So I went to. There was two places where I could go to find work, and that was three places. I could look on Craigslist, I could look on Backstage, and self-submit. There was Actors Access was around at that time, or I could go to Deborah, who was an agent at the time, and she had found out that she couldn't be an agent and an actor, a SAG actor at the same time. So she decided to open an agency, and that was Nevada Casting. Yeah, and so I went to Nevada Casting and met Deborah, and she started like trying to get. We got headshots, and she started submitting me for the stuff that she could. The little bit of work that we had is a lot of local commercials. Pretty much all there really was. Whenever big productions would come through, they would use local talent to cast the background, but they didn't usually audition people for any speaking roles. So it was kind of limited on what you could do, but you could still get involved in productions at some point. And so that's where I met Deborah. And then she decided to start teaching classes because she was growing her agency and wanted to make sure that her actors were trained whenever people came into town. And there was a time when they were going to take the Reno Convention Center and change it to a studio. And so the idea was that we'll get the actors trained so that when the big studios come and they use that space, then we have trained actors to fill in wherever needed. And so that was her motivation behind getting the classes started. And so that's why I was taking class from her. She was like one of the only independent classes that was going at the time.
Okay, that makes sense. She was. Yeah, I almost forgot about that in Reno.
Yeah.
There was almost a big turning point where Reno might become like a hub for film, like the tax incentives for Nevada, and they're gonna build out the studio sets at the convention center. And yeah, it makes sense. It's like, okay, well, we want to be prepped as Reno for when crews come. It's like, or do we have not just the actors, but do we have crew that could crew these? Do we have PAs that know how to be PAs? Do we have grips and gaffers and script supervisors and
Right.
like all of that? And the answer is Reno doesn't have.
No.
Reno doesn't really have that.
They had a good shot at it though. We had you could get all four seasons sometimes in one day. I mean, you had the trees up at Tahoe, the desert, the city, there's so much potential for locations in Reno that it really seemed like it was going to be a viable thing. And then I think they ended up pulling the tax credit and giving it to Tesla for the Gigafactory out by Fernley.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's how you ended up in that. You were wrapped by Deborah essentially, right? You're through Nevada Casting, and then she. Okay, great, cool, nice. I didn't know that. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to dive. Let me see. I want maybe dive to because we addressed Wyatt, now I want to address Caitlin's question.
Okay.
Now, her question isn't really a question, but I am interested to hear the stories. It's essentially, can you share some stories about doing plays with Caitlin when she was younger?
Yes, that was so much fun. The second play that I ever did after I got into that class, and we did Big River was the musical that we did first. And then Cameron Crane came to me after that and said, I'm with the Nevada Shakespeare Company, and I'd like for you to audition for this play that we're putting on called The Tempest. And it was a Shakespeare play. I'd never done any plays before. I'd never even read Shakespeare. I had no idea what I was in for. Um, but we did The Tempest, and I got Caitlin involved, and she was little. She played the mini bearded lady because we did it like a circus. There were circus characters, so I did like the two-faced person. It was kind of around the same time that Tommy Lee Jones did Two-Face in Batman, so I was inspired by that, and I grew out my beard and then shaved half of it off, and then like spiked up my hair on one side and slicked it back on the other. So I was like the Two-Face guy, and I played Antonio in that one. And I can't remember what character Caitlin played, but she was the mini bearded lady. And I often remember one of the lines that she had was that your swords are too massy for your strengths. And then she used her hand and like did that. So then the people had to like drop their swords because their swords were too heavy for them. And just the commitment that she had, that's like, your swords are too massy for your strengths, was so cute coming from this little bearded lady with the dress on. It was really cool. So that was like one of my favorite memories of working with her.
That's cute. Yeah. Yeah. Can I hear more about it? Well, I guess yeah. Like, so you got her involved, and that's a memory you have. How how did you guys prep for? How did you prep for that with her? Like, did you work with her to prep for the scene, or how did all that work from
I
the
don't
father daughter?
think we had any scenes together. I know I helped her run lines and she helped me run lines. Um, we didn't really have any scenes together that we could practice. I don't think. From what I remember, she might remember it different, but yeah, so I remember being able to spend some good quality time with her working on lines. Either way, she was just like little kids are like sponges. She just take it in and say the words, and it was like no problem. Um, Shakespeare, what I loved about it was that you have to know what you're saying. You can't just memorize these words and then say them. I can't. Maybe there are people that can, but I can't. So I had to know exactly what my lines meant before I could even remember them, and that wasn't always a solid either. Uh, I do remember one time I was on stage. We were in Gardnerville doing the play outdoors, and this is only my second. It was probably the second time we'd done this show, and only the second play that I'd ever been in. And I was like working through all the nerves and everything. And I remember being on stage and delivering my lines to my scene partner, and then it just went blank. It was the first time I'd ever gone blank. And there was just nothing there. And fortunately, he was experienced enough that he saw it in my eyes, and he just went straight to the end of the scene. And, the audience really didn't pick anything up, I don't think. But we missed a pretty good chunk. But I had no idea. I never even knew that that was an issue, and I didn't know how to deal with that. But it was like I was already. I compare it to standing on the edge of a cliff and looking down like 1,000 feet. So that's where I am when I'm on stage delivering my lines to start with. When I go blank, I'm falling. So there's no net. There's no unless your scene partner can jump in and save you. And that's what I love about theater, is that you have to work together and help each other out whenever you need it.
That sounds terrifying. But I'm glad that you guys made it out, and I'm guessing, or I'm hoping you're able to recover from there, right? Like it was, the scene ended, and then it came back to you. Is that kind of how it went?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
And I didn't have any more problems with that scene after that. And that's when I started having to learn skills on how to improv when you do go blank, which I didn't know that it was such a problem, but it's an issue. And a lot of actors have it. It wasn't just me that didn't do my prep work enough. Even people that have been doing it for years and have all the tricks on prepping their lines and everything down, they still go through it. It's just the way our brains work. So the way to get through it is to know how to improv. I mean, improving in Shakespeare, I don't know how you would even do that. But I guess it would be familiar enough with the character, familiar enough with the script, and with the style of Shakespeare. I mean, you'd have to have lots of experience to be able to improv through Shakespeare.
Yeah, that sounds right. But yeah, I think that's.
But yeah, the next scene I went up and did my lines, and I didn't let it get me down. That was the big thing. I didn't think I'm such an idiot and then just quit, I got off stage, I recovered, and then the next scene, I didn't have any more problems from that in that play, that performance that we did. I didn't have any more problems.
Glad to hear.
But I was really impressed with Caitlin. I don't think she ever missed a word.
Yeah, and was that her only play, or did you rope her back in for more after that?
She played one of the Lost Boys in Peter Pan. I wasn't in that one. We did Christmas Carol. She played one of the kids in the Christmas Carol. I played Topper. He was the Fred Scrooge's best friend. I don't know I don't even think that's in the original Christmas Carol. I think it was like an addition that we were doing that version. But she played one of the kids in Christmas Carol. And so, yeah, we had a lot of fun doing plays together for a short period of time. And then she took some classes. I think Stacy Spain was her teacher. And she really enjoyed it for, a couple of years.
No, it sounds fun. It sounds lovely.
Yeah. Almost forgot. I don't know how much of this she wants me to tell, but she did have like a catastrophic episode that required surgery. And so it got pretty intense for a while. And when she woke up from the surgery, her biggest concern was that she was going to miss the show. That was like right in the middle of the run that we were doing, The Tempest. And we had to figure out how to do it without her. But she was so dedicated to her part that was like her biggest concern was, I got to get out of this bed so I can go do the show. And we're like, no, we're going to figure something else out. You rest and recover,
Yeah, so some lessons to be delivered there.
Yep.
Your health is important.
Yes, for sure.
And
the show must go on, but that doesn't always mean you have to sacrifice yourself to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of sacrifice, segue to the next question. Well, I guess let's go. I want to hear. This is from Brandy.
Okay.
Your wife. What are your favorite things outside of acting to do? George, the non-acting George.
I enjoy working on cars now. If it's something like performance related, something fun, like the truck I drive now had a transmission in it that wasn't very reliable. So I figured out how to rebuild a heavier duty transmission and reprogram the computer to run that transmission instead of the one that was in it. So there was like I watched a lot of YouTube for that one, but that that was a lot of fun. And so I've been like a little bit at a time trying to find ways to beef up my truck for more heavier duty, um, to be able to go off road and to tow things with it and stuff. So I enjoy that part. Like our Equinox needs work. It's a 2018 Equinox, and I do not like working on that. It's just I don't like it. I still do it, but I don't like it. Um, so I enjoy doing that kind of work. I I like rock climbing. We've been doing some rock climbing and
Yeah,
yoga and
indoor. I guess maybe for sometimes when I tell people about rock climbing, I clarify indoor bouldering
indoor bouldering. Yes,
because rock climbing. No, I don't go outside.
we don't go out in the wild.
Not yet.
Not yet.
I don't really. I'm not gonna push us to do that.
Yeah,
But okay, yeah, rock
I have done
climbing. Yeah.
some rappelling out in the wild, and that was pretty fun. Uh, but yeah, so rock climbing, and we've been doing some yoga classes. I'm not sure that I really enjoy that, but I like the way that I feel afterwards. So it really helps with mobility. Um,
Painting.
I haven't been painting in a long time. I really love it, but I just seem to I make excuses for why I can't. I don't know why I don't do it. I really don't. I love doing it. I have all the stuff I need to make paintings. I have some ideas, so it's not a lack of inspiration. It's just I just haven't for a while, but I do enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. What is? Because I know was okay. Correct me if I'm wrong. When Restless Artist Theater, did Restless Artist Theater have your art in it when they opened up? Was that
Yeah.
your artwork?
Hmm.
Okay. In Reno, or in Sparks, I guess, there was a new theater company that opened up, and your artwork was put up pretty much everywhere around that place.
Hmm.
Okay, yeah, yeah. You paint a ton. So what is not again? You haven't been doing it lately, but when you do it, what what I don't know. I don't know much about painting myself, but what kind of painting is it, or how do you approach it, or how do you feel doing it? I guess I
So I
wanna.
paint oil on canvas. That's kind of the medium that I've started working with a few years ago, and I just really enjoy painting like animals and wildlife settings. So that's where I started. I'd go on the internet and find a picture that was interesting of like whatever animal I was interested in painting, and then I'd paint that and then mess with the background and try to make something a little bit different. So I wasn't just painting what was on the picture, try to make it my own. So I did that for I probably did 10 paintings that way. I did a picture of Caitlin's cat, and she was really happy with that. Yeah, so that was kind of easy because when I wanted to figure out what I wanted to paint next, I could just like what animal could I paint, and there's so many options that was pretty easy. And then I started getting out of the animal thing, and I wanted to expand and do something a little different. So I have this big painting over here behind the wall that of there's a shipwreck over off of Cape Cod, I think. It's called the Witta Galley. And the story behind that is that Black Sam Bellamy was the pirate, and he wanted to marry this girl. And her dad said, "No way, you don't make enough money to marry my daughter. Get lost." And so they he took off, but she got pregnant before he left. And then the story goes that he was on his way back with this ship full of treasure, and then the ship crashed right before he got back to Cape Cod. And so like she was just distraught because he died in the crash. So I just thought that was such a cool story that I started painting what image in my head was of her standing on the rocks of, of this, of the bay there, and the ship coming in a storm and hitting a rock and breaking apart, and him standing in the back of the ship with the, a lantern on. And so that's like I have an image in my head, but I started painting it and nothing was coming out like I wanted it to. And so that's the last time I tried to paint anything, and that was a couple of years ago. So I'm still debating whether I want to go back and finish that and just keep working on it. I mean, they're never finished. You just find an interesting place to stop.
Sure, sure.
But I don't know if I want to keep trying on that or if I should just start something else and then come back to that whenever I feel like it,
Yeah, those are good questions. And I mean, that story is very sad. That is a tragic ending.
Yes.
But I do see the visual as you're describing it. I could see there's a lot of drama there for sure. And it does feel very cinematic and visual. Like you don't really need, you don't, yeah, I could imagine. Yeah, it's kind of obvious what's happening here with the woman on the cliff looking out, the rain, the guy with the lantern, and the ship's going down. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, I'm you follow your heart, and we'll see. Because I mean, I know I like the idea of because that could happen with. I mean, we could talk about writing and all that kind of stuff too. It's a kind of similar thing. Like there's a half baked project or half baked script, and it's like, do I want to put more work into this? I'm not really feeling it, or
Right.
chase the inspiration, quote unquote, or what's exciting now. And I think excitement is important to have for that. Like we don't want our passions to be weighed down. If it's for us, like if
Yeah.
we're doing it for us. If we're being paid for it, it's a little bit different, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I've only been commissioned to do a couple of paintings, and those are fun projects. But usually, when I'm painting something, it's for me. It's not for other people. So.
Yeah, yeah. So don't reach out. It's not going to paint it unless it's a lot of money. Okay, I do want to. Like, there's some random questions I want to ask,
Okay.
but I don't want to hurt our momentum here. So we'll come to those in a second. I want to ask about. Well, we haven't really acknowledged where we are right now.
Okay.
We're in Los Angeles. We kind of implied that, but right now there's a big toolbox behind us.
Yes.
This cool wave thing, this cool sign. This is your shop, because yeah, you mentioned working on cars, and we can also talk about. I guess I want to bring us to. We don't have to talk about the shop right now. I want to talk about how you got to Los Angeles.
Okay.
And this can kind of play into it a little bit, like the context of. I'm sure there's people watching or listening that are either in a similar boat or haven't moved to LA yet. There's that potential too. And it's like, what did it take to make that move? And what has it taken to continue staying here? Like that two-parter is
Okay.
what I want to jump into now.
Can we talk about the sign first, real
Go
quick?
for it. Go for it.
Okay. So I'm super impressed by this sign for Jack's Surfboards. My friend Jason Crabtree made this by hand with fiberglass sheets and resin in layers, and then sanded it down, painted it, and then put epoxy over it so it would shine. This is handmade. It's not machine made. He did an amazing job with this.
It looks great.
It looks like water. I mean, I don't know how he did all that, but this is a lot of work, and I've been fortunate enough to hang on to it for him for a couple months. He's gonna pick it up again at the end of February, and he'll probably end up giving it to Jack Surfboards in Huntington Beach. That's what he made it for to start with, but yeah. So
Yeah, it's if you're not watching, the show. Yeah, I think your description of it was lovely. There's two pieces here, right? Or is this all single one single piece?
It's two pieces bolted together.
Okay, it looks heavy.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty heavy.
It looks
It's
heavy,
probably 80 pounds, I think.
but it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay, so yeah, I just wanted to point that out. Jason did a great job on that.
looks nice.
Um, okay, so after Caitlin went to college in Missouri, I still wasn't anywhere near ready to move to Los Angeles. I was doing like short films here and there, and still doing some theater um, at wherever I could get parts. And the acting just wasn't really working out for me in Reno. And I got to a point where I knew I needed to move to Los Angeles to get my career moving. And it wasn't going to go anywhere if I didn't do that. Because I didn't, I have a friend that moved here. He had a construction company and he was trying to manage a construction company here and one in Reno so that he would have income to be able to audition and just travel back and forth. And that just, it seemed like he just never had time for anything. He was constantly trying to chase auditions and hop back and forth between the two. So I knew I didn't want to do that. I knew I needed to move down here and whatever it took, just get here so I can start auditioning however I could. So Brandy's Aunt Dory, we were talking to her about it one time when we were here for Christmas. She lives in Pasadena, uh, and that's where we are actually right now. Um, we were telling her what the issue was, that didn't really like the job I was doing at the time, and that I wanted to move down here. So I knew that I could do it if I could just get here. I knew it was going to take like 10 years to get an acting career started. And the older I get, the less chance I have to actually get really good parts. Um, so I wanted something to happen soon, but I didn't know how it was going to happen. And she goes, "Why don't you just move in with me and figure it out?" And she has a 3 bedroom house in Pasadena. So I said, "Well, I'm married with 2 kids at home, and I don't have a job here. Like, that's total irresponsible thing for me to do, to just move down here and throw caution to the wind, you know." The more Brandy and I thought about it, the more we thought, well, that's the only way it's going to happen. Like, we can't, there's not going to be any guarantees. So I tried to find a job doing what I was doing in Reno, and I tried to make connections in the acting world and tried to find a job, but it wasn't a good time. Like at that time, you had to put in your resume and application online, and then a computer would weed out the ones that they wanted to talk to, and those are the ones that got the interviews. Well, part of the criteria was a bachelor's degree in all of these jobs I was applying for. Now, I had 10 years experience doing the job, so that was better than a bachelor's degree, but because their criteria was bachelor's degree, my resume was getting thrown away. I didn't know that. I was like every day applying for manufacturing, a planner in supply chain for manufacturing, like every day for 6 months. And I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get an interview. And then I finally found out that that's because they're using computers to weed out the ones down to a smaller number, because they were probably getting, 2,000 applicants a week or something. It's like they had to have some way to weed out all that. So I wasn't getting a job there. I'd already cashed out my retirement, and that's what we were living on. And so I knew I needed to do something to make money and I really thought I was going to start making money in acting like within a year or two. So I thought, well, I just need, something to get me through 6 months until I can get my foot in the door, and then it'll get moving. So I started doing background work, and that was a lot of fun. I could be on set, I get paid for it, and yeah, so that was a start. And at the time, I thought that background was like getting your foot in the door to acting. And then I realized later that it's two separate businesses. Like the background jobs I was getting was getting your foot in the door to be a background actor. And there's some people that make that their living and they know how to get the higher paying jobs and they really know how to, there's an art to it, but it's different from acting. So that wasn't your foot in the door for acting. Um, and then I found out that if you do, I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard that if you do too much background, you'll get like people just think you're a background actor and they won't take you seriously as a regular actor. I kind of feel like if you're right for the part, they're not going to care whether you were doing background or not. They're going to put you in there because you're right for the part. You know the right people.
Yeah, or you have the right background.
Right.
Because, I mean, often in a lot of movies, we hear stories about they're casting non-actors. Like, they don't really care about the acting background. It's like you have the background that fits the character, and you have experience that you could lend to the character and give it an authentic feel just by being who you are, essentially.
Right.
So, yeah, but yeah, it's not essentially, like you said, it's not about the acting or something. What?
It's a, yeah. Yeah. It's a,
Yeah.
yeah. So I really don't know. I don't know if you continue to be a background actor, if you get shoehorned into that and you won't ever get acting jobs. I don't know if that's true or not. I did talk to a guy that he was doing background on a show that I was on, and he was in SAG, and he's had bigger credits, but he was doing background in order to make his insurance for the year, so that he can make enough to qualify for insurance. And he didn't care about being shoehorned anywhere. Like it wasn't a big deal to him. So I don't think there is anything to that. But either way, I quit and I kept training. I kept taking classes. And so I took classes for about 6 years through several different studios, just training. And I got a job as a mechanic for 2 years doing transmissions at a dealership, Chevy dealership. And while I was still trying to get auditions, and my manager had sent me for a commercial audition, I had to go to Santa Monica. I live in Pasadena. I had to go to Santa Monica. Well, I was living in Glendale at the time, but still, I had to drive to Santa Monica. So, like the auditions for 2 days straight were at like 11 o'clock in the morning. So I had to drive from Glendale to Santa Monica, do the audition, wait around till they called me in, do the audition. Then I come home. Then it's like, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There's no point in going to work when I get off at 5. So 2 days in a row that happened. And you can't plan it. They'll call you like, you'll get the email or whatever the night before or 2 or 3 days before. It's not like you can give them 2 weeks notice to take the days off.
Yeah.
So my manager called me in and he said, so, this is 2 days in a row this has happened. And I said, yeah, it's kind of how the acting business works. And he goes, well, you need to decide if you're going to be an actor or a mechanic. So I said, well, I decided that when I moved here, when I cashed out my retirement, uprooted my family and moved in with my wife's aunt and had no future plans in order, I already made that decision. That's why I'm here. And I said, so I'll give you my 2 weeks notice and then, we'll go our separate ways and I'll have to figure something else out. So that's what I did. So I only worked as a mechanic for 2 years. Then, so I started a handyman business, not knowing, I've worked on cars most of my adult life. I didn't really know. I did some construction in high school and a little bit after, so I had some background, but I didn't really know how to fix household things. But I got a job with an apartment company where they just needed little things fixed here and there. So I started working with them and using YouTube a lot to figure out how to fix these things that were going bad. And then I got a job with Grubhub, and I was doing Amazon Flex, which is where you use your own car to deliver Amazon packages. And then I figured out that I could make more doing the handyman stuff than I could doing the gig jobs because you're using your own car. You got wear and tear and gas and insurance and everything. And by the time, they'll send you all over, especially in this area. LA is such a big area with all the little cities around it that they were sending me to like El Monte, and then that's where I would pick up packages and then have to deliver them in Santa Monica, like 20 miles away, dealing with traffic in LA. It was crazy. I think I was only making like $9 an hour doing that when the actual pay was probably around 20 an hour, but when you
Yeah,
figure
but
all the
all
time,
said and done, yeah.
yeah. So I had to make a decision and figure out if I wanted to keep trying to make this gig job thing work or dive headfirst into the handyman business. So that's what I actually did. I could make more money doing that, and I eventually built that business up to getting my remodeling license for my contractor's license for remodeling. So I have the B2 remodeling contractor's license now, so I can actually take my business a little bit bigger, which is what I'm in the process of doing right now. So that's where all that started, and that's what's been keeping me here. I mean, I've had control over my schedule since I left the Chevy dealership, and I have a manager. She's a great manager. So I've had my training. I've had experience. I've done a feature film with you, done some short films, and I meet with a friend of mine in Australia on the weekends to do scene work, and I have a couple of friends here that I do every other Thursday night. We meet to run scene work, and so I keep in practice that way while I run my handyman business, and then so that's what's keeping my momentum going right now until
Yeah.
I find bigger jobs.
I mean, that's something that I guess to summarize a little bit. I mean, you're doing the thing. Step one, when you're in LA pursuing your creative dreams, step one is survive.
Yes,
It's
you
like,
have to survive.
yeah, you have to be able to continue to stay here because, like you said, this doesn't happen. You don't move here and then the same year you get your break or anything. Even it's the long game. So it's like step one, survive. Step two, thrive.
Yes,
So it's about you can't get to thriving without the surviving. So
you have to give yourself about 10 years to really get a foothold. And it's all about meeting the people that you need. Because once you start getting work, work begets work. But getting the first jobs and meeting the people you need that are going to trust you to come and show up with their project, then that's where the issue is. And it takes like 8 to 10 years to make those kind of relationships that you need to be in this business.
yeah. So that said, that was essentially, yeah, the question. Let me jump to.
Did I not answer the question?
No, you did. You
Okay.
did. You did. I was almost gonna ask a different version of it, but I think we're good. Okay, so now that we're caught up to the present, essentially,
Okay.
on that.
Yep.
I'm gonna jump to some random ones, and then these range from. I'll just ask one. Kombucha.
Kombucha.
Kombucha. You told me a story once that at my last birthday party, right? Was that the
Yeah.
birthday? I had
Yep.
kombucha,
Yep.
and you had some, and now you're a kombucha fan. Can you
Yeah, I
talk?
am. So Brandy used to buy kombucha probably a couple of years ago. I'd see it in the refrigerator, not know what it was. I'd taste it and be like, oh, it's not really my thing. And it would just go bad and we'd end up throwing it away. So then she would buy another one and it would sit in the fridge and go bad and we'd throw it away. And then I was at Eddie's birthday party and we were eating like cake and I think we had some kind of takeout like tacos.
Yeah, tacos. Yeah.
And so I didn't. I asked him what he had to drink, and he said there's like water and beer and stuff. And then he said, or I have kombucha. I go, really? You drink kombucha? He goes, yeah, it just kind of resets your gut for all the stuff we've been eating. I'm like, I didn't know that's what that was for. And so, like, I've been
Funny.
drinking it ever since, and it's really helped my digestion a lot. I didn't know that that's what the purpose of kombucha was. So, like, I just have a little bit at night before I go to bed. I don't drink it all day, but it's really helped.
Yeah, and you enjoy the taste of it now
I
too,
do.
right?
Yep.
It's
The
no
taste
longer
has
like,
grown on me.
yeah, it's got a
It's like beer and wine, and
kind of hits. It's kind of bitter in a
yeah,
way.
first time you taste it, it's like, "Ugh, I don't want that." And then, like, the second time's better, and it just keeps getting better. And now I actually enjoy it.
It's like you're craving it now. It's a treat.
Yeah.
It's a treat drink.
Yep.
Okay. Do you have a flavor that you go to? I don't know if there's a brand or a flavor that you've been drawn to, or a brand you just buy something and then you just
That's
drink it.
usually how it goes. She just buys something. I got a bad bottle one time. I didn't. It was like, oh, I don't think it's supposed to taste like that. So we had to throw that one away. But it's like, I think ginger. There's like a lemon and ginger, I think, flavor. That's been my favorite so far.
Okay. I know for me the ginger ones, I think my introduction to it was a ginger flavor, so that's kind of what I go back to because it kind of hits harder and it feels like it's doing more. I just enjoy that little kick.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes sense. Ginger and kombucha.
Yeah.
But we haven't, well, I haven't tried, and I don't think you've tried it yet, but brewing your own.
Oh
I know
no.
that's a whole thing too. Um, let's see here. Okay, this one. This is a random question, but as in, we haven't really talked directly about this. But it's a question that I've enjoyed. Like there was a book that I read that brought this question up, and I'm like, I'm gonna try asking this on the podcast to some people and see what kind of answers I get.
All right.
And the question is, what is most difficult about being a man?
Wow. I didn't know you were going to ask me the easy questions. The most difficult about being a man. I feel like it's trying to figure out how to handle situations correctly. And I fail at that a lot. But that's how I learn. Every time I fail at something, I learn and then I handle it different the next time. But with being a husband and a father and a friend, like situations come up where you have to make a decision and you have to deal with it. And sometimes you don't make the right decisions. And that's, I think, the hardest part is dealing with the fact that you didn't make the right decision on something that came up with your kids or something, you know. It's that urge to make the right choice every time, even though it's impossible.
That makes sense. I'll rewind a little bit on what you're saying. I want to get some clarity on what it means to you to be a man. Like when you, because I want to, yeah, get that for context to help me understand your answer. Because you're talking about making decisions and wanting to make the right decisions, and you're kind of in a position, especially as a father, and like you said, a husband and a friend, that there's certain expectations that you think of like this. So I want to hear more about the definition for you of like what does it mean to be a man?
Well, there's like, I would say comparing the examples of men that I've had in my life, and then weighing what I think is the right way to handle something compared to how I feel in my gut, how it should be handled. So, like, I've had a lot of different male influences in my life, a lot of them, pretty strong ones. And, sometimes they don't make the right decisions. Am I answering the question?
Yeah, I think you're getting there. Your definition of a man, what I'm hearing is you, as we grow up, we are influenced by other men, whether it's portrayals of them on, let's say, on the big screen, or portrayals of them at home or out in the world,
Or
like,
bosses and
or bosses and all that kind of stuff. It's like, okay, well, they're acting this way. Is that what I'm supposed to be doing? Like, and then you kind of just do that with all the guys, and you're like, I guess I'll try to, or like, I don't know, but yeah, you're what I'm hearing from you is you're thinking about certain men in your life, and then you're boiling that down to and reflecting back your own interpretation of what you think you should be doing versus what you're seeing them doing, and you're building your own
yes.
template.
And generally, my safety net is to go back to what would my dad do? What
Okay.
do I think my dad would do?
Mm-hmm.
And, he's changed the way that he looks at things and on certain levels. And then I think about, would I do the same thing or would I do something different because of, whatever environmental changes. I live in Los Angeles, so I have a lot of different inputs than he has in Oklahoma. So we're going to do things different. But I kind of I use that as a base. Like, it doesn't mean I'll do everything that he does the same, which I usually probably don't do things the same way that he would. But at least that gives me somewhere to start from, and then I make my decision from there. So he would have been my biggest influence as what a man is in my life so far.
And then what is that?
A leader, somebody that you can depend on. I guess somebody that has the answers. I mean,
Okay. Yeah. No, I think that's
if he's the one I use as a baseline, then
yeah, because you growing up, he had the answers. Like,
yeah,
something had to get done. He knew. I don't know how it came across to you, whether or not how confident he seemed giving the answer versus having an answer, or the portrayal of confidence in an answer, I think is a big thing too.
right.
But that makes sense. Yeah. So that helps me understand your answer. Is like, okay, I'm I'm a father and a husband, and I want to have an answer. And I have to make a decision, and then you make a decision, and like you said, you live with it, and then the future kind of tells whether, like, you can kind of look back on it and be like, I wish I didn't make that decision, or I wish I chose something else.
Right.
But okay. So you're saying the hardest part of being a man is that the weight of like, I don't know what kind of decisions you're thinking of here, but the weight of
Being
of
expected to be able to make the right decisions at the right time. Yeah.
Woo! Woo!
It seems to be a lot. It's a lot to carry sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good answer. That's a good answer. I like it. I like it. Yeah, it reminds me of, I was gonna to help take some weight off of you here. It reminds me of directing a lot. With when you're the director, everybody comes to you looking for answers.
Right.
the expectation is you know what you're doing, and like you know what kind of feeling you're going for, you know what the vibe is, you know what kind of shirt they should be wearing. It's just any small to giant decision, like the people look to you for answers. And something I think we talked a little bit about it, but that's something I'm kind of working on. I haven't been in the director chair for a bit, but thinking about like I think the growth is not that this is relating. I don't know, you can tell me, but it's somebody comes to me looking for an answer, and I might not have it, and sometimes the right answer, quote unquote, is the I don't know, and let's work through this together. Or anybody else have any ideas? And like that, the humility of like, or I guess changing the culture, changing the expectation of like, it's okay not to know, or it's okay to not have an answer, because I think there's a lot of shame for me that comes up. Like I should have an answer here. I want to be the director that knows exactly what I want and how I'm gonna get it, and like in a split second, like that. Okay, full confidence. It's like that's not usually
That's
how
not
I
really
am.
reality.
That's not
Yeah.
usually how I am. Um, and there's things I could do to put myself in a position to where I understand my direction and the message better and kind of fall back on foundations. But either way, that's kind of what it made me think of. But I think that ties nicely into potential expectations of being a man. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
sometimes I think about what would my dad do,
Mhm.
and I do the opposite. So
Yeah.
either way, I've learned from what what my dad does, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I have adopted more of when dealing with my kids, especially, and with my business, uh, trying to get more input from everybody involved. Because especially if I'm making big decisions regarding my kids' lives, I want them to have some input into it. I might not always do it the way that they want it or the way they think it should go, but I at least want their input so that I know how it's affecting them before I make a decision on how things are going to go. It's like, for example,
Yeah.
Cash is in public school right now, in high school, and he's not doing really well. He just doesn't have a lot of interest in it. I mean, he's super smart, but he just doesn't have a lot of interest in school. So now we've had to take on the job of putting him into another type of school that we think he's going to excel in, and he's fighting it because he has friends at his school. And we had to explain to him that your friends that you have in high school right now are going to be gone. You're all going to go to college. Everybody's going to split up, and chances of you even being friends with them in the next 5 years are pretty slim. So, if you guys are good enough friends, we have the internet. You can, play games with them online, and you can meet up after school. But right now, we need to focus on your education, and you're not getting the education you need where you are. So we're going to put you in this other school, and we're going to, because we think as parents it's going to be better for you in the long run. But we got his input first to see how it was going to affect him, and he let us know that he was afraid he was going to miss his friends, and we can't really make those kind of decisions. Uh, with Wyatt, he got picked on a lot because he was born with a cleft lip and palate, and we've had the surgeries to correct that, and he's still going through surgeries right now. He has like 3 more surgeries to go before he's all good, but we're still working through that. But because he was different, uh, he got picked on a lot. So he went to public school till like 3rd grade, and then we decided that we could either make him put up with the bullying and learn from it because it's going to be a character builder, or we can take him out and make sure that we focus on his education. Because when he's worried about being picked on at school and the school's saying they're going to do something about it, but they don't, and the kids just keep doing it, and it keeps getting worse, like spitting on him and pulling his pants down and stuff like that. Um, I'm not going to go to school and just sit there and I have a job, you know? So I can't control that. What I can control is putting him in that environment. So we took him out of school and started homeschooling him, and he's thriving in homeschool. But it's that back to making the right choices as a man. You know, when I was a kid, we got picked on, and you just had to deal with it, and you learn from it, and you go through some pretty serious life-changing events because of it. That Wyatt didn't have to go through. But I think he's ultimately a more confident person because of that.
Good examples of fatherhood and big decisions, and yeah, those are big ones for sure. And of course, I mean, you're not saying it, but balancing it with Brandy as well and talking through it with her.
Yes.
And you kind of having your solid footing on what you think is a good idea, and she also has ideas, and you two work together.
Yeah,
And
we tend to work together really well on things that really matter. Stuff like that. Yeah.
The clarification was kind of funny.
Well,
things that don't.
we like different music. We like different movies. We like as far as our personal preferences, we are on opposite ends of the spectrum. But when it comes to things with the kids and things that are really important, we usually come to a pretty good agreement on what needs to be done.
Yeah.
We don't usually disagree about that kind of stuff.
Okay. Let's see. I gotta ask Cash's question. He wants to know, what's the scariest thing you've ever been through?
That's easy.
Let's hear it.
Dropping lines.
Dropping the lines.
Dropping lines. I mean, I've rode dirt bikes. I've rode street motorcycles. I've driven a race car.
You've been bullied, I hear.
I've been bullied. Scariest thing in the world is being on stage and forgetting my lines and not knowing what to do.
I mean, that's what it sounded like. When you described it, you mentioned being on stage is like you're standing at the edge of the cliff, and then forgetting the lines is you're in free fall now.
Free fall, yeah.
You're in free fall. That's, yeah, there's no...
So I've never hit the ground, though. There's always somebody there to throw out a safety net and pick it up again. But that's got to be the worst ever. I was on I had a VFR 700 Honda street bike, and I was coming home from work. I worked I was a bartender, and it was like 2:00 in the morning, nobody on the freeway at all. So I wanted to see how fast it would go, because there's no cars. So like, what's the harm? So last time I looked at the speedometer, it was at 120 miles an hour. And then there were sound walls on either side of the freeway. And I get up to the top of the bridge, and the sound wall ends, and I feel a gust of wind, and my front end just starts doing this. And I thought, this is it. I'm done. And then I just like eased off the throttle, and front end went back down, and cruised home at 20 miles an hour.
Wow.
But yeah, so I mean, but still, being on stage and going blank is scarier than that.
Okay, well there's your answer. Man, I had something else I was gonna say and then I forgot. But no. Okay, yeah. So you were you mentioned going fast on the freeway. You also used to race cars?
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that?
I was, my friend in high school, Steven, his family was into it. So after we got out of high school, he went to college, and then when he got back, he had built a car, and he wanted me to race with him, so he helped me build a car. So we got that car together, and then I didn't know how to race. I knew how to drive a car, but I didn't know how to race. It was on a uh, quarter-mile dirt oval track, and so my first car was a Pinto, but that had like a 1600 cc engine, and it wasn't fast. We didn't really build it for performance. We just put something together so we could get it out there. I bought the car for $500, so we put an engine in it, and I got out there just to get my feet wet, learning how to set up a car and stuff. So then while I was racing that one, we built a little Toyota Celica with that one had a 22R engine in it, and they had limitations on how high you could, how many RPMs they could take. So I was getting really good at dealing with that engine. The engine that he used, and is what most of them used, was the 1800 cc Toyota engine, which you can wind those up to like 9,000 RPMs, 9,000. So you could get a lot of horsepower out of that little engine. But they were hard to get parts for, so I opted to go with the 22R, which is what my Celica came with. So I built that to whatever performance I could afford, and I started getting really good at learning the track and learning the car setup, because you're it's going to every lap's going to be different. So you kind of have to set your car up to generally fit the track that's there, and it's going to be different every race. So you're always constantly adjusting where the weight transfers when you go in the corners. So I was in that car. I was in the heat race, the first race of the. So you do a heat race, and depending on how many cars you have, you either have another heat race or the one or the two heat races, and then whoever qualifies goes to the main race. And so I was in the heat race, and my car was pushing up the track in turn one, which means when you go throw the wheel and get it sideways, and then you hit the gas, and then like kind of drift around the corner, and then you want to hook up and then go down the back straightaway, and then you do the same thing in the next turn, and each turn's different. So you got to figure out how your car's working on the turns and where it's going to hook up to go down the straightaway. So when I would try to get it to set up for the back to come around, it wanted to just glide up the track sideways. Mm-hmm. So I found a rut down at the bottom of the track that if I put my left front tire in, I could keep the RPMs up, I could keep it in the gas, and that would grab my front tire and it would throw the back end around, and I could just cruise on down and hit. The other turn wasn't so bad, but 1 and 2 was notoriously hard to hook up in. So I figured out that as long as I hit that rut, so I just every lap just kept hitting it harder, hitting it harder, hitting it harder. And then one time I got down there and there was somebody in my rut. So I couldn't get my tire down there because there was already a car there. Yeah. And then so I pushed all the way over into the wall. And that like squished my car. Like it hit hard. Like I felt it. It like when we got it off the track and on the trailer and everything, it like buckled the part where the drive shaft goes through. Mm-hmm. That was all buckled. So my cage was bent and everything. And I tried racing that one a couple more times, but we just couldn't get the setup right because all the geometry was off after that crash. So it took me 5 years to build another car. And then I got that car out on the track, and it was just like I was getting lapped. Like I spent all my time and money into building the car, so I couldn't really afford to build the performance in the engine that I needed to be competitive. So I was like, do I really want to do this? You know?
Yeah.
It's so I just sold the car and quit. I was like, I really wanted to focus on my acting career and not try to juggle work, family, acting career, race car. I was doing jujitsu at the time too, so it was just way too much on my plate.
Dang.
So
Okay, yeah, but you dabbled for quite some time.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it
and
was a lot of fun. I learned a lot about driving, about um, driving in close quarters because these cars are like right next to you. It's a different experience when you got
mm,
cars that close to you.
that's fun. I mean, it sounds fun.
Yeah,
Adrenaline.
yeah.
Okay, so to recap, you're a race car driver.
Hmm.
You have jiu-jitsu experience. You've got the handyman vibe down. You uh, climb. You paint. you. What else am I missing here? You're a man.
That's a full time job.
That's a full. You can't clock out of that one. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think. Oh, I learned how to weld too. I mean,
Welder.
welder.
All right, last. I don't know. I'll use this last bit to kind of maybe end us back on the acting topic, and I want to maybe. Okay, I'm thinking about acting as a whole, but also your life as a whole, because you grew up in a small town,
Mhm.
pastor's son, and now you live in one of the biggest metropolitan cities in the world, in the U.S. for sure.
Yeah.
We're in the L.A. County area. Um, that jump from who you were then to then your time in Reno and then in here, and I'm sure I don't, you probably lived in other places as well.
Yeah.
But
So I was born in Oklahoma City, and then we lived in Jones, Oklahoma when I was born. Then we moved to Mustang, Oklahoma. Then to London, Kentucky. Then back to Mustang. Then back to London. Then to Hobbs, New Mexico. Then to Reno, where I lived for 30 years, and then here. So yeah, it was quite a lot of moving around when I was a kid.
how how do you think about you being here right now based off of all the places you've been before? Like how does when you think about little you and where you are now, like how does it feel being in the quote unquote big city?
I miss the vibe of the smaller towns. I really do. Like I think if it wasn't for me having to be here to get an acting career going, we would probably live in a small town somewhere. Because Brandy and I are both from small towns. We like that vibe a lot better. The thing I do like about being in a big city is the anonymity. Like nobody cares what you do, what you drive, what you wear, what you look like. It's just like everybody's doing their own thing. And so you kind of it's weird that there's more people but you're more anonymous than you are in a small town. It's like the small towns, everybody knows everybody's business, and you know it's just like I don't really like people that much in my business. But so yeah, the bigger cities have that advantage.
Yeah, the small town, it's more community based.
Hmm.
Like you said, I mean, the downside is, like you said, everybody knows your business. The plus side is you're actually a part of something, and you get to know people, and you get to build with a community and be a part of.
Yeah,
Kind of have that here. It's like you said, you're on your own. It could be isolating, and I mean that's I guess that's my take on it. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it can be isolating if you don't build your own community and find your space. But
and here I can walk to the grocery store. I can walk to restaurants. I don't really have to have a car. For most things, I can just walk to wherever I need to go. In the
yeah.
smaller towns, you kind of have to drive to go anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, Pasadena specifically, very walkable.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
walkable. Um, Okay, so there's that. And then I do want to, I don't know, I want to end on maybe hearing this is I'll say this is a safe space to gripe about um, the annoyances of what's expected of actors these days. I'm just thinking about something George and I are working on right now. Um, is trying to put together a potential personality reel.
Hmm.
Um, and there are likely people listening that aren't in the industry that don't know what that means, but so I'll have you explain that. But I will before, yeah, you explain what's a personality reel, George, and what else, what other stuff are they asking from you to make this thing work?
Okay, so in general, when you have an audition, the casting directors from the agent get to see your headshot and maybe a headshot slate, which is just you saying your name. That's all it is. So uh, outside of that, the only materials that they get to see are your performance reels. So all that the casting directors get to see before they actually meet you is you in performance mode. So a personality reel is something that they've started asking for where they can, it's like 3 minutes of you talking about you. And so they can see what your personality, what you're like without being in a performance mode, and to see if, if it's somebody that they might be interested in working with, as from what I understand of the personality reel.
So it's essentially like, hey, I'm trying to cast my feature. Send me your demo reel so I can see you as a character in a movie and be like, okay, I believe it. I believe it looks good. And also, that's not good enough. Let me see you as yourself.
Right.
Can I see
Let's
you
see if you
as,
can pull that off.
let me just see you as you. Do I like you? Let me 3 minute. You're
Right.
talking about
Which
yourself for
is
three
really
minutes.
hard. I mean, you try to record a 3 minute personality reel so that you can be yourself, but when are we ever really ourselves? Like, you're always in some sort of performance mode, so it's kind of misleading.
Some sort. My thought is like if they. I don't know. It is tricky. It is
Yeah.
tricky, and it's an odd ask, and yet it's expected. Um,
But they also want to see that you can do the things that are on your skills list.
yeah.
Because as actors, we like to say, "Yes, I can do that," and we'll figure it out when the time comes. Like, like take
Golf.
if I had bull riding on my skills list, and they'd be like, "Well, you've actually ridden a bull? Yeah, yeah, I've ridden a bull. Yeah, I used to do it all the time." And then, okay, well, we're going to do this movie about it. Well, they're not actually probably going to have you ride the worst PBR bull in existence. They're going to put you on something a little bit tamer that's been trained that they can work with, and for 3 or 4 seconds you're gonna get bucked off. Could I handle that? Probably could. I don't have that on my skills list because I don't want to be put on the back of a bull. I'm just using that for an example.
Yeah, we can get you on one of those rodeo, like at when you go to like one of those barbecue, like a bar or something. Like they
Yeah,
have the
yeah.
the mechanical bull. We can get
But
a
they're
shot of you
they're they're
doing
gonna
that.
Hollywood it at some point. But they want to make sure that you can do
Yeah.
the stuff that you say you can do. So you do include some of your skills in with the personality reel.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But on top of, because I know, being friends with you and hearing about like, okay, we want the demo reel, and now they want potential like clips from a thing like more extended clips or even just variations of a demo reel. Here's my all-inclusive demo reel that has a full like wide scope, wide range of my performances. Here's my drama reel. Here's my comedy reel. Here's my whatever. So there's like the different genres of reels. And then he also has to take different photos as well. It's like here's a photo where I look like I can play the villain. Here's a photo where I'm a silly dad. Here's a, like, or whatever you're going for. It's like you have to be front and center and have something to show for every different angle you want to play. And it's a lot.
And now I have to get some lifestyle shots is what we're working on right now. I work with Chris John. He's a really good photographer, and he's done all my headshots. And now we're trying to figure out how to. Well, I'm sure he knows what he's doing, but I don't know exactly what the lifestyle shots are. They're used more for commercial, and it's to show you like headshots are just from like here to the top of your head. The lifestyle shots are going to be full body and like different kinds of poses. I don't know. I haven't done it yet, so I'm not really sure exactly what I'm getting into, but that's one thing that I have scheduled with Chris is to get that done.
It gets a little silly
Yeah.
sometimes. Okay. Well, that may be it.
That may be it.
That may be it. Let's see. Was there anything else that we didn't talk about that you just need to say for anybody before we close this off? Do you want to do any shout outs to, like, hey, if you're watching this, Johnny Depp or somebody else?
Johnny Depp is my favorite actor, for sure. Like, I love the way he can just get into a character, and sometimes you can't even tell it's him. Like Heath Ledger was another one of my favorites, that they can just like almost transform into something else. And if I could, that's where my bar is when I do character work.
Disappear.
Yeah, disappear into the character, and then people can just watch that character instead of watching Johnny Depp do a character. So, yeah.
Any what? I guess I'm trying to remember now. It's been a bit since I've done an interview, but closing out, I do recall thoughts on we're in February 2025 right now, right?
Yep.
We got a lot of year ahead of us. Let's throw some dreams out there. What are you hoping for this year? What do you, I know you've told me some stuff. I can kind of feed you an answer if you need it, but we're just talking hopes, things that are maybe more or less in your control, and then things that maybe there's the universe.
Okay, I've learned in the time that I've been here since 2016 that goal setting is very important. To like once a year pick out 5 goals that you can do immediately, 3 goals that can take a little bit more time, and then 1 major goal that you really want to hit, and then back planning from there to figure out how you're going to hit those goals. That's so important in order to make your career advance. But what I have learned recently is that you can't set goals that you don't have any control over. If that makes sense. Like I want to be in a feature film in the next 2 years with a budget over $500,000. I have no control over that. It's like I can't use that as a goal. Like, so I need to figure out what I have control over. So my goals for this year is to go to 5 casting director workshops by the end of the year. I mean, I had to go way back to what can I control? How am I going to do that? So I'm a member of SAG-AFTRA, and they have programs where you can sign up for things like that without paying any extra besides the yearly dues that we already pay. So that's in my control. I can sign up I can only do one every 60 days, I think. But that's under my control. I want to get an agent. I have a manager now that's really helping me out a lot. But an agent would be more focused, like laser focused on getting me auditions, where manager's more like overall career. I would like to get an agent, and I'm going to take steps towards getting an agent, but that's not really in my control because they don't, they've gotten to the point where they won't see anybody without a referral. So I have to know somebody that knows the agent in order to get in the door to get an interview. They don't answer cold calls or emails, or they don't, casting directors don't really do general meetings anymore. So you really do have to know somebody. So what of that is in my control? I don't know, but I'm going to try to figure out how to meet more people. That's tough. So the best way to do that is take some casting director workshops, and I need to be laser focused on making sure that those casting directors cast projects that I would be good for. Like I don't need to go see casting directors that cast Disney shows. I mean, they do use some adults in their shows occasionally, but that's not what I need to be focused on. I need to be focused on people that are looking for my type.
Yeah, you're not just here to talk to anybody that has that title on their
Right.
business card.
Right.
It's got to be a little bit more intentional.
Yes.
That sounds good. I know you have writing that you're working on. I
Mhm.
know there's been talks of, we can do shout outs in a bit, but in terms of where people can find you. But there's talks of making stuff for your YouTube, like getting kind of back into filming some stuff for fun for yourself, and getting to exercise improv and mini scripted stuff, and kind of just kind of
Yeah,
having
improv's a big
fun, I
one.
guess, having some fun.
Yes, having fun. You can't forget the fun. If you stop having fun, it becomes work, and then you might as well do something that's fun. So you got to remember to occasionally just go back to having fun, which is what we're doing with the Thursday night meetings. That we're making content to put on YouTube, not to get hits or followers or whatever. It's for fun, and then people can see what we're doing. We're getting experience. We're having fun at it. This project that we're working on right now is Leanne and I are working on Irish accents. So that that's going to be a lot of fun. It's kind of nerve wracking, and we're going to get it shot for better or worse, and we're going to put it on YouTube, and that's where it's just going to live.
There you go. And like you said, he's not doing it for the follows or the likes, but if you can go and follow and like,
That would be cool.
that would, yeah. Okay. Well, I'm excited to see what the future holds. I am a hopeful person in general, so I'm hopeful that stuff grabs and stuff gets seen, and that we have fun, and we'll see what happens. Um, and I guess, yeah, that's I think I'll maybe leave it at that. But did you
Okay.
looks like you have a final thought you want to share? I
No.
can tell. Okay.
No, no.
All right. Well, where can people find
I
you?
did have a game idea if we had time.
What do you mean?
Well, I was wondering if like since we've been rock climbing and we've been working on our grip strength,
Oh my. What?
I brought the scales down to see if we could, like, if you wanted to play a game,
On
we
camera?
could squeeze the scales and see who gets the
Sure.
higher
Okay.
score.
Yeah, go for
All
it.
right.
Is it quick?
Yeah.
All right. So he's walking to the back. He's grabbing. Oh my! This is like a literal. Oh, kick. It's fine. I'm sure it's fine.
Kick the camera. That's the new game.
This is like a literal scale you stand on.
The scale you stand on, we can just squeeze these two buttons.
All right.
See who gets the higher score.
Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Okay, so we gotta have the camera see it.
You just gonna have to call it out.
133.
133.
132.
132. Close enough. Okay, so all I have to do is squeeze the top two.
Yep. Squeeze Eddie. almost.
I got to 120 a little bit for a second.
Oh, now my knuckles are killing me.
Well, you won.
But yeah, you beat me at rock climbing though.
Hey, it's not all about grip strength up there. Okay, well, thanks for watching the show.
Yes, thank you.
Give a follow or a comment or a like on whatever you're listening to this on. I'm hoping to have to continue doing the show for as long as I can. So share it, like it, and then where can people follow you if they wanna keep up?
I'm not sure what what my names are. G-Trip50 is usually a pretty safe bet. I think that's what it is on Instagram and TikTok. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I think George Triplett is the YouTube channel. But yeah, G-Trip50 is usually a pretty safe bet.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, that's the show. And see you next time. Thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me, Eddie.
For sure. All
Appreciate
right.
it.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.